Divorce in Vietnam is still taboo. Love? That was optional. You know what? I don't need to put up with this. Everyone loves to debate how Western values are reshaping the rules of love in Vietnam. Why argue over who forgot to pay the bills when Emily in Paris tells you that life can be so much more romantic? If you think that navigating marriage is complicated, wait until you see what it takes to unnavigate it. The question is, do you have to be present in Vietnam during the divorce? If your wife plays her cards right, you might end up with just the keys to your rented apartment. Got assets abroad? This becomes trickier. Marriage in Vietnam is like a banh mi. Everything looks good on the outside, but one wrong bite and everything falls apart. Okay, that's a little bit harsh, but here's the deal. Divorces in Vietnam are skyrocketing, and if you think splitting up is easy, think again. Think mandated therapy sessions with your ex, legal loopholes big enough for you to drive a motorbike through, and a custody system that will make you question everything. Oh, if you're a foreigner purchasing a property under your spouse's name, spoiler alert, you better start budgeting for rent. Add in contested child custody battles, property divisions that defy logic, cross-border property vests. And you put this all together, you've got a recipe for the messiest divorces on the planet. So why are divorces in Vietnam on the rise? What happened to the happily ever after turns into a courtroom drama? Stick around as we talk about why the Vietnam divorce rates are skyrocketing, the legal loopholes, and everything you need to know to get through the divorce battlefield in Vietnam. Because trust me, love is blind, but the law, it sees everything. So that's the exact topic we're talking about today, and hopefully we'll be able to help you get more information. Getting reliable information about divorces in Vietnam is like trying to get the recipe to fall. Everybody has a version, but nobody's spilling all the details. The General Statistics Office of Vietnam recorded that from 2013 to 2023, the numbers are quite fascinating. In 2023, Vietnam recorded 32,160 divorces and the registration of 649 marriages. But what's really interesting is increasing number over the last decade. In 2013, Vietnam recorded 18,000 divorces. And just one decade later, that number nearly doubled. So what's really happening here? Are couples getting worse at staying married, or is it something bigger at play? Well, first off, let's talk about trends. Women are taking charge and breaking it off. Statistics show that women are initiating over 70% of the divorces. But here's a kicker. Divorce in Vietnam is still taboo, especially in rural areas where couples remain separated unofficially without going through the legal process. 32,060 divorces may seem a small number for a population of over 98 million people, but the reality is far more dramatic. It seems like marriage is less about a lifelong commitment and more about a trial period. If the last decade was anything to go by, the next 10 years will see a lot more couples calling it quits. In the past, marriages were about more than just love. It was about tradition, duty, and let's be real, to make the elders happy. In the past, the decision to get married was not just your own. The parents had opinions, the grandparents had opinions, and to be honest, sometimes the neighbors did as well. Love, that was optional. A good marriage was for stability, financial future, and of course, not to embarrass your family. So let's fast forward to today. For younger generations in Vietnam, marriage is no longer about fulfilling societal obligations. It's about them. These couples are prioritizing personal happiness over traditional expectations. And the shift in mindset has changed and rewritten the rules about relationships in Vietnam. I once overheard a grandmother talking to her grandson, and she said, "You're 30 and you're still not married. What would the neighbors think?" And his response, "Maybe they think I'm happy." That example right there sums up the generational divide. For the older generations, they stayed together, even tolerating cold shoulders and the silent treatment. But for the younger generation, they could say, "This is not working out for me," and just walk away. If love is blind, then financial stress is the loud alarm clock that wakes you up. With the rising costs of living in big cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh, this puts immense pressure on many couples. Couples are arguing about everything from rent to who's going to pay for the kids' English classes. And then there's the career-driven modern woman. Vietnamese women are more independent and educated, and they make their own money. So they're saying, you know what? I don't need to put up with this. Divorces is not seen as a failure, but a fresh start to many of them. Cultural and social values also play a critical role. The importance of family honor, once a cornerstone of Vietnamese society, has taken a backseat to personal fulfillment. Divorce was once seen as a failure or shame, but it's becoming a lot more common, especially in the big cities like Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi. You still get the occasional side-eye from an auntie, but amongst your peers, they get it. The wedding culture in Vietnam has also changed. Although the weddings are still big, elaborate affairs, but for many couples, it's all about the Instagram-worthy photos, and not about lifelong commitment. When the confetti settles and the reality of married life kicks in, many of these couples have built a beautiful day, but not a strong relationship. So before we get into how Westernization is reshaping marriages in Vietnam, let's talk about you. Do you find this video helpful? Do you have any friends that are going through this process? That may need some help or clarity or just a little bit of laugh about it. So hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to our channel. Now let's get into the part that everyone loves to debate, how Western values are reshaping the rules of love in Vietnam. Now let's address the elephant in the room, Westernization. On the surface, it has created freedom, empowerment, and independence in many Vietnamese marriages. But dig deeper, you'll find there is a cultural identity crisis. Marriages in Vietnam, rooted in family values and resilience, is being reshaped by individualism and unrealistic expectations imported straight from Hollywood. With the rise of Western media like Netflix dramas, TikTok influencers, and Instagram perfect couples, they have glamorized love to the point that real relationships seem inadequate. Why argue over who forgot to pay the bills when Emily in Paris tells you that life can be so much more poor? This shift isn't all bad, especially for women, who now have the freedom to leave toxic relationships and unfulfilled marriages. On the downside, individualism can make marriage feel like it's disposable. If it's not perfect, why work at it when you can just swipe right to find someone new? Divorce is no longer a taboo, but it's starting to look more like a lifestyle choice. Then there's tensions between the generations. Parents who lived through the war and sacrifice felt marriages were sacred, but their kids who grew up with Western traditions feel it's just optional. This clash creates enormous pressure for young couples who want to leave but feel trapped by family expectations. But here's the big question. Is Westernization helping Vietnamese marriages or unraveling the cultural fabric that holds it together? So with these shifting values, rising independence, and a sprinkle of individualism, you might think that getting a divorce in Vietnam is easy as signing papers and moving on. But here's the twist. Vietnam's legal system has a unique take. If you think that navigating marriage is complicated, wait until you see what it takes to unnavigate it. Let's break down on what divorcing in Vietnam looks like. So if you're thinking it's all about quick decisions and smooth exits, you're definitely in for a reality check. Now let me paint you a picture. Imagine you wanted to end things. You walk into the court, expecting a clean break and moving on. But the judge has said that you have to have a reconciliation phase. That's right. Before you get a divorce, you actually have to try to patch things up. It's like being forced to watch the bloopers of a movie you hated. If both parties agree, then you can finish within 1 to 3 months. But if it is contested, which means one or the other party does not agree to the divorce, then you probably drag it on from 3 to 6 months. And it could drag on even longer if kids or properties are in dispute. The courts will comb through all the details, especially when it comes to who gets what. The question is, do you have to be present in Vietnam during the divorce? The short answer, yes. If you're fined for divorce in Vietnam, then you will have to be physically present for some of the important parts, such as court hearings. Of course, you can also hire an attorney to represent you for filing documents and preliminary matters. But for the important hearings, especially in contested cases, you have to physically be present. Why? Because Vietnamese courts prioritize reconciliation efforts and want to have a face-to-face with both people in order to assess the situation. This means having a face-to-face with your soon-to-be ex, explaining why your marriage could not be salvaged. Awkward? Definitely. Avoidable? Not so much. Vietnam divorce laws classify any property acquired during marriage as marital property, even though the name of the property was under one spouse's name. This means a 50-50 split, but in reality this is rarely that straightforward. The court takes into financial and non-financial contributions, including who's taking care of the kids and who is better in managing the household. Now, let's say you bought the property under your spouse's name. Because foreigners are not allowed to own property in Vietnam. You assume, no big deal. We're married. It's ours, right? Wrong. The name on the deed is what really matters. If your wife plays her cards right, you might end up with just the keys to your rented apartment. Though, there are legal mechanisms to allow for the Vietnamese to have a 50-50 split. This requires you to register your marriage beyond just getting the marriage certificate. So do it if you have not applied for your civil registration yet. Got assets abroad? This becomes trickier. Although Vietnam recognizes the existence of property abroad, it does not have the jurisdiction to bring it into the divorce proceedings, especially when the two countries do not have agreements to allow for this disposition of such properties. However, even though Vietnam does have jurisdiction to maintain or distribute these properties, do not think that just because properties are abroad, that they will not be brought into the courts in Vietnam, because there are still procedures to help you bring it into the Vietnamese courts. When it comes to child custody, Vietnamese courts definitely favor the mother, especially when the children are young. Fathers, unless you can prove that the mother is unfit. You can probably see yourself with only visits on the weekends and paying child support payments. That's the harsh reality, but it's the truth. Divorce is messy, no sugarcoating it, but with the right legal team, it doesn't have to feel like it's the end of the world. At Yun Global, we've helped many clients navigate the twists and turns of Vietnam's legal system. Whether it's dividing assets, securing custody, or navigating international property disputes. We've seen it all. Need a prenup in a contested divorce? Let us handle the headaches. Because at the end of the day, you want to finish with some confidence and a little bit of your sanity intact. Divorcing in Vietnam is more than just a breakup. It's a crash course in navigating cultural shifts, legal complexities, and the evolving values of a modern society. From the growing independence of women to the influence of Western ideals, it is clear the institution of marriage in Vietnam is going through a seismic transformation. But here's the question. Is this evolution empowering people to seek happiness, or is it challenging the resilience that have kept families together for generations? The answer is not black and white. It's somewhere in a messy gray, shaped by tradition, modernity, and a unique challenge facing this changing country. Do you think divorce is easy, or is it a necessary step to progress? Leave your comment below, and as always, thank you very much for watching this video. Comment below about your thoughts on divorce, and of course click on the bell for notifications. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.